My son died 7 years ago. I sent him $40,000 every year until my granddaughter warned me. I'm Gerald Coleman, 65 years old, and for the past 7 years, I've been trying to hold what's left of my family together. That means every other Saturday, I take my granddaughter Jennifer to Maple Grove Park for ice cream. Chocolate chip for me, strawberry for her. It's been a routine since her mother died. Michelle was my daughter minus and minus law, married to my only son Tyler. 7 years ago, she died in a car accident on Highway 15. Vehicle went off the road, caught fire. They said the body was too badly burned for an open casket. We cremated what was left. 6 months later, my wife Linda died too. The doctors called it a heart attack, but I knew better. She died of a broken heart. Losing Michelle killed her just as surely as that accident killed our daughter minus and minus law. So now it's just me, Jennifer, and Tyler. Tyler's been raising Jennifer alone since Michelle died, and I help out. $40,000 a year, every January for the past 7 years. It's what Michelle would have wanted. It's what family does. I built Coleman Auto Repair from nothing. Started in 1982 with just me and a toolbox. 42 years later, it's the most trusted garage in town. 3 bays. Hydraulic lifts state minus of minus the minus our diagnostic equipment. Always planned to pass it down to Tyler when he was ready. That boy was my pride and joy. My only child, and I'd have given him anything. Growing up, Tyler spent every weekend at the garage. Started by handing me wrenches when he was 8, graduated to oil changes by 14, could rebuild an engine by 18. Kid had natural talent with cars, just like his old man. When he married Michelle, I thought I had everything figured out. Tyler would take over the business, Michelle would keep the books like Linda used to, and Jennifer would grow up learning the trade. Then that accident changed everything. That September afternoon at the park seemed normal enough. Jennifer sat beside me on her usual bench, swinging her legs and telling me about school. She got an A on her spelling test. I told her I was proud. She smiled, but then something changed in her face. "Grandpa," she said, voice dropping to a whisper. She glanced around the playground, then leaned close. "Please stop sending Daddy money." I blinked. "What?" "The money you give him every year. Please stop." My chest tightened. "Jennifer, what are you talking about? I hear him talking to Mommy at night on the phone. He thinks I'm asleep." I'm not." The words hit me like a wrench to the gut. "Honey, your mommy's gone." She can't talk on the phone." Jennifer's little hand gripped my sleeve, and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Fear. Real fear. But I hear her voice, Grandpa, and Daddy gets mad when he talks to her. He says mean things. He tells her to stop crying. I wanted to tell her she was confused, that grief can make us hear things that aren't there. But something about the way she said it stopped me cold. "Jennifer, are you absolutely sure about this? You're hearing Daddy talk to someone who sounds like Mommy?" She nodded quickly. "And there's a lady who comes to our house sometimes. She has a key. Daddy says she's just a friend, but they hold hands like you and Grandma used to. And she brings him money sometimes." I saw her give him an envelope. The doctor back to Tyler's place was silent. Jennifer stared out the window, and I couldn't shake what she'd told me. Tyler was waiting on the front steps when we pulled up. "You're late," he said flatly. "Traffic." I lied. Jennifer hurried inside without saying goodbye to me. Tyler barely looked at her. "Go start your homework," he told her. His voice was cold, distant, nothing like the loving father I thought he was. I stood there on the sidewalk, watching through the window as Jennifer sat at the kitchen table. Tyler walked past her, phone pressed to his ear, not even glancing her way. When had he become so disconnected from his own daughter? "Tyler," I called out before he could close the door. "Everything okay with Jennifer?" He shrugged. She's fine. Why wouldn't she be? She seemed quiet today. More than usual. She's 8. Kids get moody." He paused, studying my face. Hi, any chance you could send next year's payment early? Got some expenses coming up. Next year's payment. It was September. I wouldn't normally send the money until January. What kind of expenses? House stuff. You know how it is. Roof needs work. Furnace is acting up. But he wasn't looking at me. In all Tyler's 38 years, he'd never been able to look me in the eye when he was lying. Some things never change. That night, he sat in my empty house thinking about Jennifer's words, talking to Mommy on the phone, a woman with a key, money in envelopes, Tyler asking for his payment early again. I went to my den and pulled out the file I kept on Tyler and Jennifer. 7 years of bank transfers, all with the same memo family support. $40,000 in January 2018, $40,000 in January 2019. Every year like clockwork, adding up to $280,000 total. But looking at it spread out on my desk, I realized I had almost no communication from Tyler about how the money was being used. No receipts for Jennifer's clothes or school supplies. No updates about her activities or needs. Nothing. Just brief text messages when I sent the transfers. Got it. Thanks. That was about it. I pulled up our old text conversations on my phone. For 7 years, almost every interaction had been initiated by me. I'd ask how Jennifer was doing in school. If she needed winter clothes, could I take her to the park this weekend? Tyler's responses were always short, dismissive. She's fine. We're good. Sure. Whatever. Never details. Never stories about what Jennifer was learning or who her friends were. Never invitations to come over for dinner or join them for anything. Just the bare minimum required to keep me from asking more questions. The more I thought about it, the more questions I had. What did Tyler do all day? Last I knew, he was working construction, but he never talked about work anymore. His truck always looked clean, not like someone who spent days on construction sites. And that house of his, when had he painted it? When had he fixed that leaking gutter I'd offered to help with months ago? And Jennifer, when was the last time Tyler had told me something she'd said or done? When had he last seemed proud of her accomplishments? I closed the file and sat back in my chair. Outside my window, the street lights were coming on. I thought about Linda, how she used to worry about Tyler even when he was grown. That boy needs more direction, she'd say. He's got talent, but he doesn't apply himself. Maybe she was right. Maybe I'd been too generous, too trusting. Maybe $280,000 over 7 years was more money than any man should receive without questions. I decided to drive by Tyler's house the next morning, just to see. Maybe I'd catch a glimpse of this mysterious woman Jennifer mentioned. Tyler's house is a modest to minus story on Oak Street. White siding, black shutters. A lawn that always needs cutting. I'd helped him with the down payment for years ago. Paid for it with money from the garage, thinking I was investing in my granddaughter's future. I parked down the street the next morning and waited. Around 10 a.m., Tyler's truck pulled out of the driveway. He drove toward the main road, probably heading to whatever job he claimed to have these days. I gave him a few minutes, then drove closer to the house. Everything looked normal from the outside. Jennifer's bike on the front porch. Tyler's work boots by the door. But something felt off. The lawn was too neat for a busy single father. The flower beds too well maintained. When had Tyler ever cared about landscaping? Around 2 p.m., a silver sedan pulled into Tyler's driveway. A woman got out, dark hair, professional clothes, confident walk. She was attractive, maybe 35, wearing a leather jacket that looked expensive. She went straight to the front door and used a key. Just like Jennifer said. I sat there stunned. Tyler had never mentioned dating anyone. After Michelle died, he'd always acted like the grieving widower, too broken to think about romance. But here was a woman with her own key to his house, coming and going like she lived there. 20 minutes later, Tyler arrived. He parked behind her car and went inside. Through the living room window, I could see them talking, laughing. She touched his arm. He put his hand on her waist. These weren't the actions of casual friends. I drove home feeling sick to my stomach. Tyler was lying to me. had been lying for who knows how long, but about what exactly? And why? That evening, I called my buddy Brian Richards. Brian and I served together in Korea back in the early 82nds. After the army, he'd spent 30 years as a detective with the county sheriff's department before retiring 5 years ago. If anyone could help me figure out what was going on, it was him, Gerald, he said when I explained what I'd seen. How long has it been since Michelle died? 7 years. And Tyler's never mentioned dating anyone. Never brought anyone around to meet you or Jennifer. Never. Acts like he's still grieving, still struggling to raise Jennifer alone. Brian was quiet for a moment. I could hear him thinking, the way he used to when we'd work through problems together. You know what this sounds like to me? Sounds like your son's been living a double life. Question is, what else is he hiding? That's what I need to find out. All right. Let me make some calls, see what I can dig up. But Gerald, you need to be prepared for the possibility that this goes deeper than just a secret girlfriend. The next day, Brian came to my house with a notebook and a serious expression. I ran Tyler's name through some databases I still have access to. Found some interesting things. He opened his notebook. First, Tyler's been collecting unemployment for 8 months. Filed a claim saying he was laid off from construction work back in January. My stomach dropped. That's impossible. I just sent him money in January. Gets worse. He's got gambling debts. Casino records show he owes over $60. Zorro to 3 different establishments. Been a regular at the Riverboat Casino for the past 3 years. $60,000? I felt dizzy. How does someone rack up that kind of debt? Poker mostly, some slots. The kind of gambling that starts small and spirals out of control. Brian flipped a page. And here's the kicker, he's been trying to get a loan against your garage. Listed himself as partial owner on the application. My garage. The business I'd spent 42 years building. Tyler was trying to use it as collateral for his gambling debts. There's more, Brian continued. Property records show he owns a warehouse on South Industrial Boulevard. Purchased for years ago with a loan that lists you as a guarantor. I never signed anything like that. I figured. Looks like forgery to me. But here's what's really interesting. The warehouse is registered under a business name. Coleman Storage Solutions. Using your family name. I stared at him. What would Tyler need a warehouse for? That's what we need to find out. Brian set down his notebook. Gerald, I think your son has been running some kind of operation. The secret girlfriend, the forged documents, the gambling debts, the unemployment fraud, it all points to someone living way beyond their means, unwilling to break the law to maintain their lifestyle. But the money I've been sending him, $40, Zorro a year. That's not enough to cover gambling debts and a warehouse. No. Which means he's got other income sources we don't know about yet. We spent the next hour planning surveillance. Brian still had equipment from his detective days, cameras, recording devices, tracking equipment. We'd watch Tyler's movements, document his activities, try to figure out exactly what he was up to. One more thing, Brian said as he was leaving. I want to check on the woman, get her license plate. Run her background. If she's involved in whatever Tyler's doing, we need to know who she is. What if we're wrong about all this? What if there's an innocent explanation? Brian looked at me with the same expression he used to wear when explaining harsh realities to grieving families. Gerald, men don't forge their father's signature on loan documents by accident. They don't lie about unemployment, rack up $60,000 in gambling debts, and hide girlfriends because they're innocent. Your son is in deep trouble, and he's been using you to try to dig himself out. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Tyler as a little boy, how excited he'd get when I'd let him help at the garage, how proud he looked when he fixed his first engine, how he'd promised Linda on her deathbed that he'd take care of Jennifer and make something of himself. Where had I gone wrong? How had that eager kid turned into someone who'd forged documents and lied to his own father? But mostly, I thought about Jennifer. 8 years old, living with a father who was clearly falling apart, who had gambling debts and secret relationships and God knows what else going on. What kind of environment was that for a child? At 3 a.m., I got up and walked to my den. On the shelf was a photo of Tyler's wedding day, him and Michelle, beaming at the camera, Jennifer just a baby in Michelle's arms. We'd all been so happy that day, so hopeful about the future. I picked up the photo and studied Tyler's face. Even then, there had been something restless about him, something that suggested he wasn't quite satisfied with the life he had. Maybe Brian was right. Maybe Tyler had been heading toward this kind of trouble for years, and I'd been too blind to see it. Tomorrow, we'd start watching him more carefully, and maybe we'd finally get some answers about what my son had become. The surveillance started the next morning. Brian and I met at 6 a.m. in the parking lot of a diner 2 miles from Tyler's house. He brought equipment I hadn't seen since my army days. Telephoto cameras, recording devices, tracking deer that could follow a vehicle from miles away. First rule of surveillance. Brian said, checking his camera lens. We document everything. Times, locations, license plates, who comes and goes. Build a pattern. We positioned ourselves in Brian's gray sedan, the kind of car nobody notices, about 3 houses down from Tyler's place. Far enough not to draw attention, close enough to see clearly. Tyler left at 7:45. I am sharp. Instead of heading toward the industrial district where most construction jobs were, he drove to a coffee shop downtown. Met with a man in an expensive suit. They talked for 30 minutes. The man handed Tyler an envelope. Then they parted ways. That's not construction work, I said. No, it's not. Brian snapped photos. Guy in the suit looks like money. Illegal or illegal, I can't tell yet, but definitely money. We followed Tyler to the warehouse. It was a squat, ugly building surrounded by a chain-link fence. The sign outfit read Coleman Storage Solutions, just like Brian had said. Seeing my family name on that building made me sick. Tyler went inside for 2 hours. When he came out, he looked stressed. Kept checking his phone, looking over his shoulder. Whatever was in that warehouse was making him nervous. I need to know what's in there. I told Brian, we will, but not today. Today we just watch. The woman Karen? We learned her name was when Tyler called out to her, arrived at Tyler's house that afternoon. Same routine as before. Key, straight inside, comfortable like she lived there. When Tyler got home, they talked on the front porch. I could see them through the telephoto lens. Tyler was agitated. Gesturing with his hands. Karen kept touching his arm, trying to calm him down. At one point, he pulled out his phone and showed her something on the screen. Her face went pale. They're scared about something, Brian observed. Or someone's pressuring them. Yeah. Question is who? That evening, Jennifer called me. She never called. Tyler always made those arrangements. But there she was on my phone, voice small and frightened. Grandpa, can you come get me? What's wrong, sweetheart? Daddy's yelling again. At the phone. He's saying bad words and throwing things. I could hear crashing in the background. Tyler's voice raised in anger. I'll be right there. When I pulled up to Tyler's house, I could see him through the living room window, pacing back and forth. Phone pressed to his ear. His face was red with rage. Jennifer was sitting on the stairs, arms wrapped around her knees. I rang the doorbell. Tyler answered, still on the phone. I gotta go, he said into the device. We'll finish this later. He hung up and looked at me. Dad, what are you doing here? Jennifer called, said she was scared. Tyler's expression shifted, suddenly defensive. She's fine, just a little drama over homework. But I could see Jennifer behind him, and she definitely didn't look fine. She looked terrified. Why don't I take her for a scream? Give you both some space. Tyler hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, okay. Bring her back by 8. In the car, Jennifer was quiet for a long time. Finally, she spoke. Grandpa, Daddy's different now. He's mean. Mean how? He yells at Mommy on the phone, tells her she's stupid and worthless, and sometimes he throws things at the wall. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. If Tyler was talking to someone he thought was Michelle, if he was being abusive to whoever it was. Jennifer, when Daddy talks on the phone, does the person talk back? Sometimes. but mostly she just cries. A chill ran down my spine. Someone was crying while Tyler yelled at them. Someone Tyler thought Jennifer couldn't hear. That night, I called Brian and told him about Jennifer's call. We need to get inside that warehouse, I said. I agree, but we need to be smart about it. What if someone's being held there? What if Tyler's involved in something worse than gambling? Then we'd get the police involved. But first, we need evidence. The evidence came the next morning, but not from the warehouse. It came from my own house. I'd been thinking about Michelle's art all night. For 7 years, it had sat on my mantel, a brass container I'd been told held my daughter minus and minus law's remains. Linda used to talk to it sometimes, whispering goodbyes and apologies. She died believing Michelle's ashes were in that urn. But what if they weren't? I stood in my living room at 2 a.m., staring at the brass container. It looked legitimate, felt heavy enough. But something about Jennifer's words, hearing Tyler talk to someone who sounded like Michelle, had planted a seed of doubt. With shaking hands, I lifted the urn from the mantel. The lid screwed easily, too easily. Inside was a clear plastic bag tied with a twist tie. Through the plastic, I could see dark powder that looked like ash. I opened the bag and immediately knew something was wrong. The powder was too coarse to texture. I reached in and let some run through my fingers. It felt grainy, inconsistent. Then I smelled it. Coffee. Not the sterile, neutral scent of cremated remains, but definitely coffee grounds. Rich, dark, unmistakable. I poured some of the contents onto my coffee table. Mixed in with the coffee grounds were flecks of cinnamon and what looked like other spices. I touched one of the flecks to my tongue. Sweet, spicy, definitely cinnamon. For 7 years, I kept kitchen scraps on my mantel, believing they were Michelle's remains. Linda had died kissing this brass container goodbye, and it was filled with garbage. My legs gave out. I collapsed onto the couch, staring at the fake ashes scattered across my table. Tyler had done this. My son had given me coffee grounds and spices to grieve over. But if the ashes were fake, then maybe the death was fake too. With trembling hands, I called Brian. The urn, I said when he answered. The urn is fake. It's coffee grounds and cinnamon. Silence on the other end. Then I'm coming over. Don't touch anything else. Brian arrived within 20 minutes. Took photos of everything. Collected samples of the fake ashes. His face was grim as he worked. Gerald, if Tyler faked Michelle's death, if she's still alive, then she might be in that warehouse. Yeah. And if she is, she's been there for 7 years. The thought hit me like a physical blow. Michelle, alive. Imprisoned for 7 years while Tyler collected money from me and lived with his girlfriend. While Linda died of grief, believing her daughter minus and minus law was gone. We're calling the police, Brian said. Now? Right now. This isn't just fraud anymore, Gerald. If Michelle's alive and being held against her will, this is kidnapping. This is serious federal crime territory. As Brian made the call, I stared at the coffee grounds scattered across my table. 7 years. $280,000 th. My wife's death. My granddaughter's fear. All built on a lie my own son had constructed. Whatever was in that warehouse, whatever Tyler had done, it was about to come to an end. Detective Carl Peterson arrived at my house an hour later, along with 2 other officers. They documented everything: the fake ashes, the financial records, the photos Brian had taken during surveillance. Mr. Coleman, Peterson said, we're going to need your help with this. If your daughter minus and minus law is being held in that warehouse, we'll need to move carefully to ensure her safety. What do you need me to do? We need you to confront your son. Get him talking. And we need it all on record. The wire was smaller than I expected. Detective Peterson held it up between his thumb and forefinger the next evening. This clips right under your shirt collar. Picks up everything within 20 feet. Crystal clear audio. We were at the police station. Not the main building, but a smaller office Peterson used for sensitive operations. The room felt like a doctor's office sterile. Fluorescent lights, the kind of place where bad news gets delivered. You sure about this, Mr. Ullman? Peterson asked. Once we start recording, there's no going back. I thought about Jennifer, scared and calling me for help. About Linda, who died believing Michelle was gone. About 7 years of lies and $280,000 stolen from a father's love. I'm sure. Peterson spent 20 minutes showing me how the wire worked, how to position it, how to get Tyler talking without making him suspicious. But he has to act like you know more than you do. Let him think you're giving him a chance to explain before you go to the police. What if he runs? He won't. Men like Tyler, they think they can talk their way out of anything. He'll try to convince you this was all Michelle's idea, that he was just helping her. At 8 p.m., I called Tyler. Son, I need to talk to you. Can you meet me at your storage place? A long pause. Dad, it's kind of late. Can't this wait? I know about the warehouse, Tyler. I know about the gambling debts, the unemployment fraud, all of it. I think it's time we had an honest conversation. Another pause. Longer this time. I could hear him breathing, thinking. Dad, you don't understand, then help me understand. Meet me there in an hour. The warehouse looked different at night, uglier, more threatening. Peterson and his team were positioned in unmarked vehicles around the building. I couldn't see them, but I knew they were there, listening to every word through the wire. Tyler's truck pulled into the lot exactly on time. He got out slowly, looking around nervously. In the parking lot lights, I could see the stress on his face, the weight he'd lost, the way his hands shook when he lit a cigarette. Dad, he said as I approached. Whatever you think you know, I held up the plastic bag full of coffee grounds. This was in Michelle's urn. Want to explain that? Tyler's face went white. For a moment, he looked like the little boy who used to help me in the garage, caught in a lie about breaking a tool. I can explain, he said finally. I'm listening. Michelle. She wanted to disappear. She was having problems, mental health issues after Jennifer was born. She couldn't handle being a mother. One night, she said she wanted to vanish, start over somewhere else. So, you helped her fake her death? I gave her what she wanted. No messy divorce. No custody battles. She could be free. I stared at him, my son, hearing words that made no sense. Tyler, where's Michelle? He pointed to the warehouse. She's safe. I take care of her. For 7 years? You've kept her locked up for 7 years? She's not locked up. She could leave any time. Then why doesn't she? Because Tyler struggled for words. Because she knows what would happen. The insurance fraud, the fake death certificate. She'd go to prison. Tyler, that's not Michelle's choice to make. You've been holding her prisoner. His expression changed. The nervous boy disappearing. Dad, you don't understand what you're getting into here. No, you don't understand. My voice came out harder than intended. You let your mother die believing Michelle was gone. You took my money for 7 years. You've destroyed this family. I never forced you to give me anything. Because I thought I was helping my granddaughter. Because I trusted you. Tyler stepped closer, and for the first time in my life, I was genuinely afraid of my own son. Dad, you need to walk away from this. Pretend we never had this conversation. Or what? Or things get complicated for everyone, including Jennifer. That was a threat against my granddaughter, from my own flesh and blood. Before I could respond, police sirens filled the air. Squad cars surrounded the warehouse lot, officers emerging with weapons drawn but pointed down. Tyler Coleman. Peterson called out through a bullhorn. Keep your hands where we can see them. Tyler looked at me, understanding dawning on his face. You set me up. I found the truth. The officers moved in, cuffed Tyler. Read him his rights. Peterson led me to the warehouse entrance while his team found Tyler's keys. Inside, past stacks of boxes and old furniture, was a makeshift living area. A cot, a hot plate, clothes hanging on wire. And there, sitting on a folding chair, was Michelle. She was thin. Desperately thin, and her hair was gray now, longer than I remembered. But it was definitely her. After 7 years of believing she was gone, my daughter minus in minus law was alive. Gerald, she whispered, is it really you? I couldn't speak, just opened my arms. She collapsed into them. Oh, Dean. I wanted to come home, she kept saying. I wanted to see Jennifer grow up, but Tyler said, he said you'd all hate me, that it was better if everyone thought I was dead. The trial lasted for months. Tyler was charged with kidnapping, fraud, forgery, and elder abuse. Karen Davis, his accomplice who worked at the funeral home, was charged as well. She'd helped Tyler procure an unclaimed body to stage Michelle's death. The evidence was overwhelming. Financial records, the fake urn, Michelle's testimony about 7 years of captivity. Tyler claimed he was protecting Michelle, giving her what she wanted. The jury didn't buy it. Tyler got 15 years in federal prison. Karen got 8. They were ordered to pay restitution $280,000 to me, plus damages to Michelle. The hardest part was explaining everything to Jennifer. How her father had lied, how her mother had been alive all these years, how I'd been fooled just like everyone else. Are you mad at Daddy? She asked one evening, sitting at my kitchen table doing homework while Michelle cooked dinner. I'm disappointed. Very disappointed. But anger won't help anyone now. What about Mommy? Are you mad she was gone so long? I looked at Michelle, stirring pasta sauce at the stove. She'd gained weight, looked healthier, but I could still see the trauma in her eyes. No, sweetheart. Mommy was hurt and scared. She needed help, and Daddy didn't give her the right kind. A year later, things are better. Not perfect, but better. Michelle lives in a small apartment 5 minutes from my house. She's working again, part minus time at the county hospital. Jennifer splits time between us. Court minus approved joint custody. The garage is thriving. Michelle helps with the books now. Turns out she's got a head for numbers. We're expanding, adding a second bay. Tyler writes letters sometimes. I don't read them. Most evenings, the three of us sit on my back porch. Jennifer does homework while Michelle and I drink coffee and watch the sunset. It's peaceful. It's what family should be. But I think about Linda often, how she died believing Michelle was gone, how 7 years of our lives were stolen by my own son's greed and lies. The hardest lesson I've learned. Love isn't enough to protect you from the people closest to you. Trust has to be earned every day, even from family. Especially from family. We're still here though. Michelle, Jennifer, and me. Still a family, just different than we started. And maybe that's everything we need. Sometimes the greatest threat to your family doesn't come from strangers, it comes from the person you die to protect, wearing the face you've loved since birth.